Welcome to today's episode of the Staffing Evolution Podcast. For those of you joining us for the first time, my name is Michael Schneider. I'm the owner and CEO of Omega Digital Services, and we specialize in helping staffing and recruiting firms grow their business and scale their revenue using the latest AI technology. In this podcast, we dive deep into the business of staffing and recruiting and learn about cutting-edge strategies that successful staffing and recruiting firms are using to grow their business today. So if you want to learn about how to take your staffing and recruiting firm to the next level, stick around for a great discussion. And if you're interested in a free growth consultation, drop the word growth in the comments or DMs and hit me up on LinkedIn. My guest today is the handsome and talented Greg Johnson, founder and CEO of StaffNow out of Phoenix, Arizona. Greg, welcome to the podcast.
How you doing, Michael, today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for being here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your company and your journey as a business owner?
Okay, awesome. Well, StaffNow, we are actually a staffing platform that focuses on supply chain staffing, primarily industrial staffing for hourly workers. Been in business for 10 plus years. It's been an evolution, so I'm excited to talk about what we've been through the last decade or so.
Mhm. So, what inspired you to start the business?
Well, I've always been an entrepreneur. I grew up relatively poor, and I knew that the gateway exit for me was either through athletics or through entrepreneurialism. And I was fortunate to do both of those. And so I've always found a way to find opportunity. And so I've owned multiple businesses, but staffing's been the one that's really stuck to me. It kind of gets in your blood. I ended up in the industry initially through the Olympic Games. I was a venue manager, and Ronstadt was our staffing partner. And through that, I was introduced to staffing. In post games, we were given opportunities to support some of new initiatives, and I liked the business and the business model. So I was offered an opportunity to take a recruiting job. So I took a pay cut and a desk, and I grew, I think, within 18 months from a desk to a VP of half the country. And so that was like my intro to it. Always knowing that I was just looking at the business model, knowing that eventually I'd get into the staffing space. And then ended up purchasing a franchise called Link Staffing. Many people may have heard of that, and ran that for several years. One of the top franchisees. And then I was like, I'm out. Don't want to do staffing anymore in 2008, and was going to exit the business. Sold out, went into financial services. Um, and then in 2015, a friend of mine who stayed in the business when I left in 2008 was telling me he was in the high hundreds of millions. And I was like, what? And it kind of opened my eyes to the opportunities of what staffing offered. And subsequently acquired what now is StaffNow, a small agency, and with the intent to scale it. And so came in that traditional model, but knew I wanted to scale it, and that's what sort of created the journey we're on now.
Okay, tell me about the process of scaling that you went through.
Yeah, so we started with a little small office here in Phoenix, and we were going to just grow this thing based on that traditional branch model. But I didn't have a big bucket of money, and so I said I got to get creative to be able to scale this. And so about a year and a half in, and this was actually 2019, so it was right before COVID. Um, I said we saw a stat that said um, I think 89%, I think it was like Harvard Business Review or something, says 89% of people are now looking at their mobile phone first when they go to apply for a job. And so I saw that trend and I was like, you know what, let's get into mobile. So we invested in a white label app. It was very, very clunky, but I made that pivot move right then in 2019. I think it was like actually in July of 2019, we made that decision. Went through the pain points of getting it onboarded, and then, of course, in March, COVID hits, and we had some clients who were actually suppliers for Amazon and a couple other large companies, and they needed to scale quickly because COVID and the essential workers. And what we discovered was we went from this little small branch to about 6 states in like 6 months using the mobile and digital tools to scale the business. And that's when I began to discover a little bit of what a platform could do. And so that was the start of this true journey on what we're on now.
Okay. And what would you say is your core offering and your core clients?
Yeah, today it is, and sort of started out with that light industrial, and we broadened it to supply chain when we went into the COVID piece. And that meant to more, not just that warehouse person, but we actually did some more janitorial stuff and some logistics and food production stuff. And so depending on the pivot, so we kind of broadened our offerings to that complete supply chain. And that's kind of been where we've been for the last, 4 or 5 years. And then this year, we what we call StaffNow Flex, which is our 3.0 of the mobile app. We've actually really leaned into a platform piece, and we've added a little bit of the what we call events hospitality piece and janitorial as a additional line. So we've got our bread and butter, but we're now adding those. And so we're doing some things that are slightly different in that space where we're leaning more into shifts and statement of work, SOW stuff, but it's enabled by that technology first, that digital first tool. But now we've embedded some AI, so it's kind of evolved.
Hmm. How does the AI figure into it?
Interesting journey. We jumped on the AI bandwagon super early, and again, I think we initially thought we are going to find a way to replace some of the mundane recruiting functions and some of the voice AI tools we used to kind of do some intake stuff. Um, and it was pretty painful because we weren't really getting the ROI we were looking for. And now we've kind of landed on it's an enhancement tool for our existing team. And so where we use it is within our ATS and our mobile platform. It does a lot of skill matching and sourcing, and we've got kind of a resource base that sort of taps in. So, for example, we may be looking for someone who worked on an assignment, maybe a year ago. We can tap into what we call Stancis, our AI agent, and she can find that information like in seconds, where before you would have a recruiter kind of dig through some things. Um, we also use it now as a front end recruiting tool. Now, for us, we don't necessarily use it as a carte blanche, like outbound. But what happens if someone applies for a job, then we have an immediate response, whether it's through a voice AI tool or our direct recruiter, enhanced by that. But it's empowered our recruiting team. I think probably 3 to 4 times what they normally would be doing, and we're seeing continuous growth and enhancement as we've upgraded our offering.
Nice. Yeah, a lot of people are coming into it. I've seen that too, expecting to replace workers, and they find that it's not adequate to replace workers, but can work quite well to multiply
Yeah, we've
workers.
tried it in front end too, not just on the recruiting side, on the sales side. We had an AI agent that would do a lot of intake on folks who either went to our website, if we had a lead campaign or something like that, and we would respond with the AI. And we did not have success with that. We needed to have some type of human element in that piece. So there's been really, trials and errors, and still really in that process. But we've kind of landed as the enhancement piece for us right now.
Yeah. So you use it for like the recruiter to help do searching, sort of the database searching tool, and to do some of the moving the applicant through the application process.
Yeah, and then we now introduced the client portal
Hmm.
within our platform. So what it enables is we'll do skill matching, but it
Mm.
gives our client real time view of the job filling. So, for example, within the platform, the client, typically is going to call us or wait for an email to say, how many people do you have, or whatever else you're waiting on an order. Well, now they can go in their client portal and they can see in real time exactly how it fills.
Mm.
We're data pooling based on client too. So what's happening is cool is we'll have an auction client, for example, and they're going typically a couple days a week. And so we'll broadcast um, to that particular group who's actually, kind of got that skill set or work there. And the client can see it fill like almost immediately. So they love to watch the activity without necessarily having to make a phone call, send an email, or wait for a recruiter to
Get that real
follow
time
up or any of
feedback
that.
to see
Yep.
that you guys are making it happen.
Yep. You got it.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. Um, and talk to me about your client acquisition journey. Like, how did you, when you started, what was your process for getting clients? How has that evolved and changed over time? And how have you brought AI into that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the pain point for us all, right? Getting more clients nowadays has been a journey for sure, especially the last 2 years. Initially it's that true, and I come from the sales side of the business, right? That was really the business development piece was the strength of mine, and so we were able to, in that traditional sense, hunt and get these clients, and that still works to a limited degree. But when you have a sales team, right, and you're hitting multiple markets throughout the country, we need to do that a little bit differently. And so our marketing team has got more in that push to the more pull attraction piece, right? That we're getting. And so we're doing a little bit more of the influencer piece where, we're posting a lot more content out there, blogs, whether it's case studies, and we're looking to show what our capabilities are. And so we're trying to attract this audience a little bit more to engage with us. And so we've kind of flipped from that that traditional proposal discovery process to now we're actually more like a demo and a consultation and then a delivery on that. And so we've built our systems around that. We're using um, things like Active Campaign, HubSpot on the marketing side to sort of nurture relationships to bridge them. And then for us, once we get that client acquisition, we're targeting client share, and we train our recruiters to scale and grow, whether it's new orders, but new lines of business as well, that we can target. Or we've now introduced what we call our StaffNow partner network, where we're partnering with other firms who may not be in our specific vertical, but because we have that client relationship, we've got a commission share partnership with them on different levels. And so these are all things that we think are helping us scale our sales piece of this business development piece.
So your partner network is for other staffing firms that work in other industries, other verticals?
Yeah,
Or
initially it was for what we target was more of that independent recruiter who may needed the contingents piece,
hmm.
and that's kind of where we started with this. And of course, we have several of those. But recently, we've had a lot of other staffing firms reaching out who are not in our vertical, who are looking for some of that partnership opportunity or just don't know the space and don't want to be in the space. And so we're seeing that as well. But that wasn't the original piece of it. Now with our technology and our platform piece, and it's not a big number, but we've had a couple people say, "Hey, can we use your technology? Can we use some of this stuff?" And so we're kind of experimenting with that as well and looking at ways we can do the partnership. But we feel like that partner network is going to be kind of the way that we're going to do client acquisition long term for us. So we're really putting some energy behind that.
Interesting. And are there industries or new verticals that you're targeting as a result of that?
Well, not only the events and hospitality piece for us and the janitorial in that space. And typically you wouldn't say janitorial is something in itself, but
Mhm.
for us, we see a lot of multiple industries that don't necessarily address that piece of it. And so we're seeing things from apartments, venues, to distribution centers. And so we're kind of targeting that as a niche for us, and we're seeing some success and traction because for us, we target that what we call the deskless worker or the hourly worker. That's kind of where we started as a core. That was our passion initially to treat them that particular constituency with value. We do some unique things with those folks. I mean, for example, we have an associate of the month, but we actually go to our client site and recognize that person, and we may give them, a big screen TV or $250 gift card, and that kind of helps with the retention. But it also is different in that sense that we're actually going on site and doing some of these things. So that
Oh,
what
it
that
seems you're going
does,
above and beyond a little bit.
yeah, it's created a little bit more of what we call a value proposition with that hourly workforce or the essential workforce that we work with.
Hmm. Hmm. And do you find that your clients want to stick with you long term as part of the staffing, or did they want to transition out to having their own full-time employees and get rid of you?
I mean, it's still the same. I mean, I think ideally employers want full-time employees, right?
Hmm.
But what we're discovering, and this is part of the core piece of our recent pivot, right, which is more to a shift platform, less of a job platform, is flexibility. The
Right.
workforce is looking for flexibility. Even in our particular constituency, jobs are abundant in our the low skilled hourly places. Jobs are abundant. They can go lots of places to do that. And so we've got to do things to give them value in that process. And people are looking for income opportunities. And so because we have more opportunities, right, they can work more income
Mm.
opportunities. If life comes at them, right, and things happen, um, they can still stick with us and have opportunities where before it was only this 1 hour job and you had to do, they would go to multiple agencies. And so we're finding we're getting a lot more availability of workers and also a lot more retention in that piece.
Of your clients.
Yep. Yeah. In
Nice.
fact, it's funny. We have a very, very large nationwide client, and they actually made a lot of our partners do the same things we do because they didn't want the other agencies people to feel like what we were doing was unfair to them. And so we're like, hey, why don't you just let us do that? But they're like, no, we have to be, you know what I mean? But it's interesting to see. And so that's created long term relationships for us that we're seeing.
So
Um,
that client encouraged their other staffing partners to move to the shift-based model.
Not just the shift based model, but our associate of the month or some of the discount offerings we give, some of the things that we kind of the value add stuff that we do.
Hmm.
Because we do it on site sometimes, you know what I
Right.
mean? They're like, hey, we don't want folks to feel left out. So they'll go to the
Oh,
agency and say, hey, listen, you've got to match what these guys are doing. And so
nice.
it becomes that ongoing conversation of,
Yeah, that's a
uh,
real signal that they're liking you, huh?
yeah, you got it.
Nice. Um, and so how is your approach to business development? How do you think it's going to continue to evolve in the next couple of years?
Um, Yeah, I think we're gonna continue to add value. So what we're building is offering value, right? We're giving you more, visibility, transparency. What that does is gives us speed of execution. It actually gives us, deliverable KPIs that they can measure. And and because our business has been somewhat commoditized, they kind of think we're all the same. And so building our platform model that gives the visibility of really what's happening. But the one thing that we think is essential for us is we always have the human connection in everything we do from a technology perspective. We don't
Mhm.
want someone to feel like they have to do a help ticket or a service ticket or they got to do an email and not have a live person because what I say all the time to my team is people do people things and people will always figure out a way around technology one way or another. And so we want to be there when our clients have that need, right? To partner with them. And so we're going to always keep that human element in what we're doing. But there's a value associated with that. And we have to do a better job of conveying that to our clients, our industry consistently. What's your markup? What's this? What's that? Right. And we've kind of gotten to this commoditization piece of this. And because we're not building a great pool of talent, right? We all know that right now talent is not growing, although it's a little flat right now. But we know long term, especially for the types of what I call the final mile activities, these human oriented jobs, we don't have a pool of them that's coming down the pipeline that's going to be, uh, all of a sudden we're going to find a large pool of these. So I think our clients are going to continue to look for a partner that they can really engage with where the world is. And so that flexibility piece, that shift piece, the retention piece, and then the engagement piece, we feel like is going to be the kind of things that we just have to do a better job of telling folks what we're doing. And I think we're going to attract the right kind of clients through that. In addition to that, the world is going toward entrepreneurialism, right? We're seeing people do side hustles with where the economy is. And so our partnership network offering additional opportunities to not only independent recruiters or even someone who may be just one interested in the industry but doesn't have the ability to or the infrastructure or another agency that's been a small local that wants to scale, we now have an option that they can tap into our platform and scale and grow. So that's another piece of our business development model that we feel like attracting those two edges of that will be the key to how we scale and grow.
And how has your marketing evolved?
Yeah, marketing is a key piece. I think we're, outside of the biggies, because we're not a huge agency. Okay, we're in my eyes, we have 17 employees. You know what I mean? We're yes, we're in 26 states. I mean, 26 cities, 13 states. We have 70,000 people in our database, so we're not like huge,
Yeah. We
but
call that mid-size.
you got it, mid-size, right? So from that piece, what we feel like is investing in marketing and technology. So at our size and scale, I have an IT manager who actually, we own technology, right? And we have a marketing department, right? That actually is doing, and we've won some things with, uh, you know, we've been 3 times, I think almost 4 times, Inc. 5,000 fastest growing companies, SIA 4 times fastest growing companies. That's all from us really investing on the front end of the marketing piece, but also having the technology that can really pace to allow us to scale. Because we don't want to add bodies and branches, right? We're going to add technology and leverage our marketing piece and tell our story and build that
Right.
audience. And that's the approach that we're going at it.
What are the marketing channels that you find most effective?
So it depends on the audience, right? So on our associate talent side, right, it's definitely social media, the engagement, telling the story about us, and so we definitely are highly engaged on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, those kinds of things for that piece of that audience. LinkedIn for us is on the business side as a general social channel, and then we're leaning a lot more, not necessarily a social channel, but trade shows and some events and stuff like that. So doing those kinds of things for us in our particular niches, in our particular verticals, leaning into those things. So we're again exposing ourselves to the audience that we're seeking to attract.
Right. Do you do any advertising?
A little bit of SEO that we do on that piece, but with the evolution of AI, we're learning how to post and to market in this world with Chat GPT and some of that stuff. And so it's pretty cool that I won't get into the proprietary stuff we've done, but we're landing on the top front page, maybe position 6 or 7 organically now with some of the things we're doing with our technology and our search piece of that without advertising, right? Without advertising. And so we do spend a little bit on both on all channels, but it's not a huge piece of our budget. We're still, hands-on, uh, you know, uh, what we call hand-to-hand combat on the business development side, right? Just front end looking and having these conversations with folks and engaging on the client side once we get acquisition, really embedding ourselves and what we call land and expand internally. That's what we do. It's a big deal for our recruiters. So and because
Also
we
getting
can scale by location, you got to remember we land a relationship. We're not limited because of our technology by a geographic footprint, and that's how we
right.
kind of grow.
So then you either look for other clients in that geographic area.
Yeah, so we'll introduce their location. I mean, I just came from Utah, and we have 3 clients here in our Iowa location that we introduced to our Utah location, and all of them were expansion opportunities.
Hmm.
And
So,
so, but I flew there. I had the conversations with the folks to tell them about the story, and that's the kind of stuff we do.
okay. What are your goals for the business in, say, next 1 to 3 years?
Yeah, what's that? 1 to 3 years? The way we're pacing right now, it just seems like so far away. Um, you know, I honestly, I'm kind of torn. There's 2 ways that we're going in this, right? Is we've kind of scaled this business. I'm the primary owner. I don't have outside investment, and we've kind of done this through with intent. I came in with intent to do this, right? But as we grow, I'm seeing the need, right, for more resources, more resources. And because of where we've been, I'm getting lots of conversations from private equity folks who want to have these conversations and do that kind of stuff. I've got a business coach who is encouraging me to look at that. So that might be a direction we go. So we can really, once we get this platform piece kind of dialed in, then we can really scale right with a partner. So I may look at that piece of it. I can't say for sure, but that's a high probability to kind of put some fuel behind the fire, if you will. I love my team. I love to coach and grow people. And so, I'm kind of spoiled in that where I'm really engaged in that and I don't see me going away from that. So as long as we're at a size and scale where I think I can make an impact with folks long term, that my team gets the economic opportunity of the growth, um, could that be, 100 million, 50 million? I don't know. But that is just the growth is super important, and the evolution. And I made the mistake of putting big numbers out there before, and then it doesn't happen. But we did great, and we feel like we didn't really achieve it, right? And so I'm trying to just I'm just in this place right now. We're just building the next phase of where we're going, and let's see where it takes us. And it's been a fun ride because when you look back from where we're at and where we're at today, it's pretty cool what we've been able to do.
Yeah. What would you say is the biggest challenge if you could wave your magic wand and eliminate one problem?
um,
What
yeah,
would it be?
I don't think this will ever change, but it's people. So, and what I mean by that is, the change we're making right now. We've had changes, right? As you try to make these pivots and changes, our people have to grow, right? And they have to go and scale with where we're trying to go. And so along the way, you find folks who are just not willing to go where we need to go. And so you've got to make some really tough calls on that. On one hand, it's great to see the people who do grow with it, and it's amazing and it's wonderful to watch them grow. And then it's really tough to be people that's helped you get here and that you really like and you really value as a person, but they're just not getting the job done. And so you got to make those decisions. Those are the tough ones for me. If I, and resources, right? I don't think we've ever felt like we were totally resourced enough to do what we need to do, right? Whether it's money, people, technology, whatever, it's like I need more of that, right? And so those are
Okay. Okay. Let me just ask you one final question. If anybody watching this podcast wants to get in touch with you as a client or as an employee, how can they do that?
yeah, pretty easy to find me on LinkedIn. You know, you'll see me as Greg J A Z. It's pretty easy, but look me up on LinkedIn. I'm there. If they want to email directly, they can do gregjay@staffnowjobs.com. And feel free to reach out to me on any one of those channels.
Awesome. Okay, Greg. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. It's been really interesting. You have really been inspiring in the way that you've grown your business and achieved the results you have. And I appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.